Alrighty, I'm ready to go if you guys are ready to go. I'm always pumped. I'm always excited. Easily excitable even. I'm willing to say that. I don't know about you. Welcome, one and all. Short little intro for what will likely be a short little talk gaming. There's not a lot to talk about this week, so this is going to be a much more informal style of video just in general. Normally talk gaming, I try to have at least some structure to it, but this week that's going to be tough because there just frankly isn't a whole lot to talk about. This is really common after an event like E3. All the companies put out their stuff and then they just said everything and they kind of gave it a month or two before they start, you know, really announcing other stuff. But I mean, I don't know what we'll get into. It'll be much more informal, as I said. A lot more conversations, more maybe perhaps almost an AMA style thing. We typically devolve into it, or maybe not devolve, but we end up doing an AMA style thing near the end of each episode anyways. So we'll just have it be like that. You can ask me some bigger questions to spark up a conversation, and then we can have longer form discussions with that. But with that said, I do have a couple things I want to point out and praise before we get into just open-ended questions, period. I think I can also... there we go. That was supposed to be visible from the start. I figure like it might as well just be there. It doesn't really get in the way, and it lets you see some useful information. After the show today, we're going to be over on Twitch. So right above my head right there, twitch.tv/LukiPooTV. We're going to be over there playing probably the Stick of Truth. I was going to try to do Hitman, but I had some problems acquiring it. The Steam Summer Sale is happening, of course, which is always a super fun time, but the problem is that it is very, very heavy on server loads and everything. It's like a legit problem where people try to buy something on Steam, but they can't because so many people are on the store trying to buy those very items. And luckily it's software, so there's no like, you know, we're running out, you have to come pick them up fast. There's nothing like that in terms of scarcity, but it's just a difficult thing in terms of technological aspects of the modern marketplace. I guess Steam, it's a very serious platform, but they aren't typically prepared for the sheer volume of people that they tend to get when they do a summer sale like this, which is, I suppose, to be expected to some extent, because the bandwidth required is just unholy, I'm sure. Neat is the one that asked for Hitman. I tried to get it, but I ran into some issues, so I figured a safe alternative would be the Stick of Truth, and maybe we'll try Hitman. I almost called him Stickman. Stickman. But yeah, we might be over on Twitch doing Hitman later this week once all the servers kind of lighten up. I'm not a Starbucks guy. That should be noted. I don't like giving them my money, which is why I didn't. My lady friend decided to bring me a coffee, and this is the one that she got, so I'm very thankful for it. But normally I go with alternatives. But yes, I do have coffee this time around, so we're ready to go. We're pumped up. Let's see. Yeah, hold all of your big questions for in just a few minutes once I get through the big things I want to talk about, and then I'll address all of those. Do not worry, they will be discussed. So the first thing, obviously, as the title of the video implies, is that PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds passed 4 million copies sold this past week, which is kind of insane. Like majorly insane. So as you see, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds has been consistently one of the most popular PC games since its release earlier this year. Very true. It's incredibly popular on Steam and also on Twitch, just in general. The difficulty being that you have a lot of CSGO players transitioning to that. So you end up with these guys who can do triple headshot, no scope, 420 whatevers. And I'm there like, oh, I'm playing, I can shoot a gun. I have a lot of trouble with it. Just in general, I'm not very good at those shooters. And this is an early access game, which I think is important to note as well. This is an early access game that sold 4 million copies. That's mind-blowing. They still haven't even officially integrated, at least as far as I can tell, skill-based matchmaking, which you would think would be kind of a no-duh feature, but they are apparently still rolling it out, or it might not be implemented at all. Because when I've been trying to play it the few times I have, it's insane. There's probably half of the group, I think it's 100 players total. So like 50 people are really like probably average, close to how you're playing. They haven't played many of these games, but they got on the hype train. 20 are better than average. They play the harder difficulties and, you know, FPSs. And then you have like maybe 30 people who are just god level. And it's insane how impressive these guys are. They'll be just running through a field. They'll see a slight pixel shift in the distance, and then they'll no scope headshot you. It's insane. Very talented people, I suppose. But it's very, very tough to manage and to keep up with that skill level. But that's part of the fun, I guess. You got to get on their level. But yes, so PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, if you aren't familiar with it, let me shift back and I can pull up some gameplay just to show you. Now, this is a game that is very, very... It's like CSGO impressed a lot of people, and the reason it's still popular is because the gameplay is so pure and interesting and fun. Let's do this one. Let's mute it, and we'll switch back to this. So this is what it looks like. This is on ultra settings, so this is when it looks better. But again, it's important to remember this is an early access game. So it blends first-person shooters like CSGO with this massive map where it just throws you into the thick of it and says, kill each other, last person standing wins. And it's fun. It's fun. So you land, and then you have to go and find weapons. And it's like the Hunger Games, basically. It takes that and then goes with it. So you can go and you can have, like, you can team up with people. You could have a group of like 5 people that you have this pact with, where you're gonna go and work with them, finding weapons, killing everyone else. And then once you guys are the final 5, you'll separate, and it's every man for himself at that point. Or you can just go like on your own, just free for all it. It's up to you. So it's really interesting. It's an interesting concept. This guy's showing off his graphic settings. But yeah, no, the fact that it sold 4 million copies. Horizon Zero Dawn, which was widely considered to be an incredibly successful game. Now, to be fair, it wasn't exclusive to the PS4, but right now, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is an exclusive to the PC, which you could say is a larger platform. But at the same time, I would say probably the player base, in terms of committed players who would be playing a game like this, is probably comparable. But that's up for debate. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just what I would imagine. But with that being said, I don't care about your graphics settings, bro. Just show me more. So with that having been said, Horizon Zero Dawn sold 3.5 million copies over the course of about the same period of time, roughly. And that was a widely successful, crazy successful game for Sony. So the fact that this game is getting this level of sales right off the bat is very impressive. Now, it also looks like it's going to come also to the Xbox and Xbox One and One X later. I think 2018 is when they said they were expecting it. But that is still slightly up in the air as to when exactly it'll come. But what I heard was that it's not coming to the PS4 at all. It's exclusive to the Windows Xbox platform, which they might turn back on. They might have already turned back on it since earlier today when I heard that. But from what I have seen in the news, it looks like it's going to be exclusive, which if that's true, oh, look at that headshot. See, you just see a little guy, a little peek, and then you get him. He wasn't paying attention. So if that's true, that's a major win. This is a major win for Xbox. These are the exclusives that they need in order to win over players, because this is such a crazy popular game. Everybody's playing it. If you want to play with your friends, you need to, you know, have a platform. You need to have an Xbox or a PC, which is really cool. Oh yeah, this, you see this line, these lines that are kind of hazy and grainy. I don't know if it comes through like that on the other end, but you see how it does that weird kind of optical illusion thing? On here, they're just like lines, and when you get closer, I'm sure they look like just lines, but that's actually called Moira, like the character in Fallout 3. It's weird how it works, but for some reason cameras do not like fine lines. They kind of have a heart attack every time you try to display them. It's going to be on, Rave Taco says it's going to be on PS4, but a year later. So 2019, they're thinking of bringing it 2019 because it's coming to the Xbox in 2018. That's still, even still, like we're talking 2 years from now. That's insane. That's insane. Still, I would consider that a win. I would take it if I were Xbox executives. I mean, maybe they shouldn't take that as a win, but I would, because you have an exclusive for 2 years. A 6-month timed exclusive is probably not huge, but with that, I mean, 2 years is pretty massive. That's pretty massive. This is the other thing I wanted to address, because it is a very interesting thing. The developer of Beyond Good and Evil 2 said that the game was in day 0 of development, which I said didn't really surprise me. It looked like they threw together a cinematic trailer and that was it. But they have since shown off...
The actual game.
Shh, quiet, my man. They have since shown this off, which was their first, like, in-engine demo. Now, in-engine demo could mean literally anything. Now, this could just be that they took the landscape that they used in the cinematic trailer, like really lowered the resolution and all of that, threw it in Unity or whatever engine they're using, Unreal probably, and then just ran it off of an Xbox One X and said, here's a demo of sorts. But I mean, it doesn't look terrible. They show some cool stuff. He's got his little monkey jetpack, and this is very, very rough, as you can see. Like, none of that has actually been modeled or built for gameplay, but it's kind of a rough outline of what they're hoping to eventually have for you to explore in this game, which is really, really interesting and intriguing. So I thought I'd point it out, because it does look like they at least have a concept. It isn't just a cinematic trailer, and they have something. Now, as Deathstroke is saying in the chat, that he says, quote, that pre-alpha engine footage kind of gave me a No Man's Sky flashback. That's fair. That's fair. You got to be careful getting hyped up for this type of stuff. Plus, I've never understood getting hyped for cinematic trailers or for graphics in general. I just don't understand it. I think it's reasonable to get hyped up for instance, like a really cool gameplay mechanic, or if it's from a developer that you know and you love. I can understand getting hyped up for that. But yeah, you see this once they zoom out and they show that it's all seamless. Which is cool. Like, this is running in real time, so he can show this off. But it does, I would agree, give a little bit of a No Man's Sky flashback. But that's the thing. There will eventually be a game like No Man's Sky that does what No Man's Sky wanted to do. It'll eventually happen. The problem is that until that day, everybody that tries to do what they wanted to do will constantly be compared to that negatively. I don't think there's a way to positively be compared to No Man's Sky. So that's really unfortunate, but at the same time, I think it's probably a good thing because it means that people have to have their crap together. And that's kind of impressive. I don't know what else to really say about it, but they do have at least something working, which is more than a lot of these developers can say. You see they have some flight gameplay, maybe. I don't know if you could call it gameplay, but they're at least showing off something. Take it or leave it. This game is still probably 2, 3, 4 years out. This is a game that literally could be on the next generation of consoles, which some people say that will never happen. There won't be another one. They'll just keep coming out with like a new Xbox One X or something, and they'll come out with a new PS4 Pro or something, which is possible, but my guess would be eventually in like 3 or 4 years they're going to do it, kind of throw it back on and rejuvenate it. Tomer says, can you go on that other planet? Like, how big is the space that you can explore? Well, again, I mean, I'm not exactly sure what their intentions are, but at this stage, it's really just up in the air. Like, we're still talking about it's a good 3 years out, 4 years out. That's still the time to build the entire game. They're just going to be stuck trying to hold down expectations, but I don't think they should have done this. I don't think they should have shown off anything, because the game isn't going to look or feel anything like this demo when it eventually launches. So I think that showing this off was actually a huge mistake. I think it's going to come back to bite them. Maybe not, but just like how Cyberpunk 2077's trailer in 2013 has just been festering there, collecting dust, it's caused more frustrations with their community than anything else. And CD Projekt Red's teams have said multiple times that they regret showing off and announcing that game so early. So I just think that it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake to show it off. But those are my 2 cents about Beyond Good and Evil 2. I did not play the original. Some people have a really nostalgic connection to it. I do not. So I'm looking at it completely like just as somebody who doesn't really have a horse in the race, and I don't find it to be super compelling because, after all, it's so early that I don't have anything to really say. Now, a lot of people in chat, now we'll start doing more generic questions and just kind of going with that. Those are the 2 big things I wanted to address. But now I'm going to look in the chat and see what we got. Mayor Hazan, let me switch back. Mayor Hazan says, what do you think about Assassin's Creed Origins? Personally, I'm hyped. I'm still hoping for a proper playable modern day. Well, so I have 2 things. I'll start with the second part of that question, the playable, modern day playable section. It's important to note that this is made by the same team that did Black Flag. Now, Black Flag, which maybe I should switch to this. Black Flag was many people's favorite Assassin's Creed game, but at the same time, it was the least Assassin's Creed of any Assassin's Creed. So it's important to remember that, you know, you have to balance what you're looking for. Now, if you remember in Black Flag, the idea, yeah, I try to climb up a fiery wall. The idea was always that we were going to, like, you were in Abstergo Entertainment and you were building this game. And so it kind of was this commentary on Ubisoft, and it was kind of fun. And of course, later on, it gets more complicated. But it was much less serious, I would say, personally, than other games like in Assassin's Creed 2, or when you're dealing with Desmond. That's a much more serious, harsh tone where they're coming and they're trying to kill people. It's much more serious. Whereas this team seems to have always taken a much lighter tone with it and to try to just have it be like kind of fun and goofy, whatever, who really cares? We'll have some jokes in there. So I don't know. We'll just have to see how it plays out. My guess would be it won't be a huge element of the game, just because I think that they're realizing that that's kind of second to the Assassin's Creed aspects. Like the game director, I forget his name now, said that when they started development on Origins, their goal was to create a fun game and then to create a good Assassin's Creed game second. So the gameplay was the prime interest, and creating an interesting and fun game in and of itself was the prime directive. And then having it make sense in the Assassin's Creed universe was second. He said they did the same thing when they started with Black Flag, and you can see that because it's got all these ship mechanics. It doesn't really echo many of the trends that were common in Assassin's Creed previous to or prior to it. And so I think it's just important to remember that there's a big attitude shift between the different studios. The studio that did Unity is different from the group of people that did Syndicate, which is also different from the groups that did Black Flag and now Origins. They'll all have different tones. So my guess would be, in general, it'll be lighter. It'll be more focused on the actual assassin part, and they'll probably steer more away from the modern day portions, which personally for me, that's my preference. I'm not a huge fan of the modern day stuff. I think it's distracting from why people actually play the games. But that's where I'm at with it. In terms of gameplay, I think it looks interesting. It looks intriguing. The combat looks hit or miss. I can't tell. I'll just have to try it before I can really say if it looks or if it plays well. Because right now, we're just speculating. 99% of the people talking about it have not actually held a controller and played the combat mechanics and systems. So people who are criticizing the combat system, I think, are speaking a little too quickly. I'm open to it. It is very tough to echo a Bloodborne or Dark Souls style combat system, which is apparently what they're trying to do, without being super difficult, but still being accessible. Like an accessible Bloodborne is apparently the style that they're going for. And that's very, very, very hard to do. Very hard to do, especially when they're focusing so much on gear, which they're weirdly obsessed with. If you watch the interviews describing Origins, they keep going on about loot. Like, loot is their favorite word. It's a little strange. Yeah, I will be doing a critique of Black Flag, by the way, because the same team that's doing Origins did Black Flag. I thought it would be good to analyze how they're doing. Now, that probably brings up an interesting thing. I put out the Blood and Wine critique earlier this week, and well, I called it a review, Blood and Wine review, because it was halfway between everything. It was just kind of weird. And I tried to make it shorter, and the reason I tried to make it shorter was because I thought that I just needed to get something out. I needed to get it out earlier in the week. Normally my work process would have been much different. I tried to rush it, basically. So I put the video out probably a week before I would have been finished with it normally, had I given it the right time to kind of gestate and I guess mature and get those ideas to float where I wanted them to be. So I ended up, in many ways, pushing out a video that I wasn't proud of or that I wasn't super happy with. And the result was a good chunk of people watching it. The majority of people found it good and enjoyed it, but a good chunk of people also thought that it was phoned in a little bit, which to some extent is true. I did rush that video. I didn't give it the time that it deserved. My idea was that Blood and Wine is a bigger expansion than Hearts of Stone, but it's not narrative in the same way that Hearts of Stone was. So I was thinking that if I just focused instead on bullet pointing it. I tried to do more like my Mass Effect Andromeda one, where I went through bullet points briefly talking about it. That wasn't what people were looking for. They were hoping to see a critique like the core game one and like Hearts of Stone. And that was my fault for misreading what people were really looking for. And I apologize for that. It's just a tough thing. You know, you always have to balance expectations and what you're capable of doing. Plus, I'm trying to figure out what the upload schedule should look like for the channel. I don't want to put out one video every 2-3 weeks. I don't want to be like that. I want to get stuff out more regularly. But at the same time, I'm also dealing with doing massive videos. And it's tough. It's tough to balance it all. So we're figuring it out slowly but surely. I don't know what the trend will be if we figure out that 30-minute videos, 30-minute critiques on older games is good, but an hour and a half is like for new games, and that's what we start doing. It's just tough though, because for most of this, I would want to go through the game once, twice, 3 times, and then taking notes on all of that, and then going, and the editing process alone is massive. Plus you have to think of the scripting certain sections and then recording all the vocals and everything. It adds up really quickly, and you end up with a process that takes days or weeks on end to complete. And by then, unless you're really balancing things brilliantly, you're looking at like a bi-weekly upload schedule for those videos. Now, each of those videos is massive, and I would like to think is well done, but you just have to really figure out how it's going to work and pace it correctly. And I'm not sure, especially once we hit the fall. I'm going to school full-time. I'll be working full-time, and also I have one play that I'm in the fall. So I'm not going to have a ton of time, but I'm going to try to keep it up. I'm going to try to keep it up. But yeah, no, the Blood and Wine video was not my favorite at all. So I do want to just throw that out there. I did feel like I rushed it, and I think that was visible. But with that said, let me see. I saw another comment. Somebody asked about the new Spider-Man. So somebody was asking about the new Spider-Man game. Now, the new Spider-Man game by Visceral. Let me pull this up. Let me pull this up. We have the technology. Spider-Man. Here we go. The fact that the video is called E3 gameplay defines everything that's wrong with gaming journalism. This is not like, this is so scripted. It's almost painful to watch, but it's what we have. So you see a big city. That looks interesting. Now, important things to note. This is supposed to be in 4K, and right now I'm streaming it in 1080p on my display. In yours, it'll be a little lower because the bit rate is a little different. But the textures, just in general, it's possible this is a compression issue, but the textures in general look really bland and flat. Not what I would expect out of a 2017 title. But, you know, that could change by the time we get to release, so I'll leave that open. But we see Spider-Man appear, and, oh, Spider-Man, you're super cool, super awesome. A little visual bug in the background. He swings over. Again, a cutscene. We're not actually playing yet. Still a cutscene. They're trying to do a much more narrative thing. So now we have control. Now we have control. Now you see just one button press, and that happened. Perch, we get up there. One button press, and we tie this guy up. Like, the entire game is just one big QuickTime event, basically. Which I'm not super happy about. Because I remember, like, my standard for a Spider-Man game is, like, Spider-Man 2, if you guys played that one. That game was, I believe, on the PS2, and that was such an amazing game at the time, at least for me and my reference. It had the great balance between serious and then lighthearted and just fun. which I thought worked brilliantly well, where you're delivering pizzas, but then you're also fighting Doc Ock, and it was just wonderful. But this just looks like one giant QuickTime event, which is a little unfortunate because I really expected more. Now, again, it's possible this is just the nature of E3 demos, where it's always going to look like a QuickTime event thing because that's all they can really show. They don't want to show a lot of free roaming stuff because it might spoil. But I think that would have been much more effective if they'd gotten out and just shown Spider-Man swinging through the city, showing off how big the map is and how you're just swinging along and somebody calls at you for help. You go and it starts this whole side quest that's massive. That could have been really, really cool. But instead they shoved this highly scripted thing, and it was just a little frustrating for me. I expected much more from Spider-Man. I mean, it's friggin' Spider-Man. And so apparently Sony is expecting a lot from this title. Like, they're basically depending on this title to counterbalance all of the hype around the Xbox One X, which is gonna need to be pretty serious. And so hopefully we see a big push later on. Now, when does this come out? I think 2018. I think they said 2018, right? Yep, 2018. Again, not clear when in 2018. They don't even say early, but it's just frustrating. I don't know what else to do about it, though. Anyway. So yeah, Spider-Man I'm not super pumped about. Geralt says, yeah, Angry Joe said that it's a hands-on game. It just looks like it isn't from this gameplay. That's possible. Again, I haven't played it, but I think, you know, the trailer tells a story, which I've said before, but I think the trailer tells a story, and what the developer chooses to show you, I think also tells a story. So the fact that they chose to show off a section like that is what they think is going to sell the game. And if that's what they think is going to sell the game, then you have to also remember that if that's what they think sells the game, then that's what they're pushing within the game, because they're going to try to show off the most impressive thing about their game. And that's a little concerning, which is why when people see nothing but QuickTime events in a trailer, they get concerned, because apparently the developer thought that that was so cool that they showed that off as the primary thing. So it's just, I think it's important to be careful. Dimitri says, Sony's been making me feel queefy lately. Sony's been making me feel a lot recently. I don't know. I think expectations were just crazy high I lost my train of thought. At 4E3, I think it was just crazy high. They have some really interesting stuff that they can bring to the table. They have I almost said No Man's Sky. They have like Days Gone. Days Gone looked really impressive. They have The Lost Legacy, which I'm sure will sell just fine, but that is by no means a system seller, or that's definitely not exciting people about having a PS4. Is like Lost Legacy looks like one giant mod to Uncharted 4, where you can't play as the one character that you always liked playing, but instead have to play as this, you know, sorority duo, I suppose, of characters that aren't likable to begin with. And it's just a little frustrating. Daniel says, Luke, are you going to play Destiny 2? I've never been a big shooter guy. At the very beginning, I showed off some, like during this frame, I showed off some Wolfenstein gameplay. This is on sale on Steam right now. I think it's like $10. I think normally it's $20. I think it's $10 right now. It'll probably drop a little more, but that's available to you if you want it. But I have not, I'm not typically a big shooter guy. There we go. Just in general, I don't do a lot of shooters. They're not my thing. I tend to like third person, more narrative stuff. That's just how I tend to be. But I mean, I might try it. I might, but that type of grinding gameplay, the rating. It's never been my thing. Plus online stuff also never really been my thing. So yeah, that's what I got. But so far Wolfenstein is interesting. I never played it. Yeah, Liam says he bought Wolfenstein and The Witcher 3. Those are good buys. You just lost your weekends for the next month. Gone out the window. Let's see. Comments. Mensa member said, I like that username, says, have you seen Escape from Tarkov? I don't think so, but it sounds familiar. Luke, good name, says, what are your expectations for God of War? My expectations right now are that it looks really, really good. It's a blending of God of War and a very Uncharted Last of Us style of storytelling, which I think is highly, even still, I think it's underrated in the industry. I think it's a Sony exclusive thing nowadays to tell a story in that way, with that style of gameplay where it's very cinematic. Let's see. Oh, we might have just had a hiccup where we lost some. Yeah. So if you just experienced buffering, it's okay. We should be back. I don't know what happened, but something happened. So if you can let me know if it's back on and okay, then let me know, because I see right now 120 dropped frames, and it seems to be okay now, but it looks like there was a hiccup for a second where YouTube got clogged up or something. I don't know. This is weird. It's weird. Probably skipped like 3 or 4 seconds. I don't know. But yeah, so with that, I mean, God of War, I'm sure is going to be wonderful. It's going to be very narrative. It's going to be interesting. It's going to tick off a lot of classic God of War fans who liked the sort of arcadey, over the top, like just insaneness, which is understandable. But I think this is the natural evolution. I have God of War 3 up on this shelf right here. And it's... I tried to play it. I gave it like all my energy for a good 2 hours, and I could not get into it. Because after what I was expecting, it just doesn't feel right to me. I don't know. Kratos is such a horrible person that I just can't connect with him, and it's probably because I'm spoiled with all of these very narrative games, but it wasn't working for me. Geralt says, Mr. Matty Plays said that if Kratos doesn't devolve into the bloodthirsty rage beast that he's been for the last 5 games, then they failed. Thoughts? No, I would say that actually means that they succeeded. I mean, I understand why some people love that arcadey feel, and that's what I really think it is, where it's this top-down, almost isometric feel that's very arcade-like, where you're running around and you have all these bright colors going. I think it's a game for people with ADHD, really. I think that's what the original God of War trilogy is. It's a game that, you know, busy parents will give to their kids who have ADHD, won't stop running around in circles. They give it to them, and it's got bright colors, loud noises, occasionally a couple naked chicks, and it holds their attention. And that's not for me. I much prefer an interesting character, a story arc, something that I can connect with or sympathize with. Kratos in God of War 1, 2, 3, all of them, it's just horrible. You don't want to like him. I don't think he's meant to be a likable person. He's got a tragic story for sure, but he's not meant to be relatable in the same way that perhaps Joel in The Last of Us would be relatable, or at the very least sympathetic or empathetic. So it's just Yeah, I would disagree with Maddie on that. I think that they are right to be moving away from that arcadey style. It's not popular nowadays. There's a reason you haven't seen a lot of those style of games like the Dante's Inferno or God of War original trilogy. And when those games do come out, they don't tend to be wildly popular. So I think it's just important to be aware that times change, styles change. Isometric games used to be the only thing that really was there, with the original Fallout games, with whatever the like original Diablo, for instance, or if you throw in some of those Stronghold Crusader type games, all isometric, top down, very, very sprite based, I suppose. Now it's not like that at all, and we're doing over-the-shoulder or first-person narrative, high graphics, high fidelity, interesting characters. We want you to connect with the character, they connect with you in this intimate way, so when anything happens to them, then you feel something something significant, and that just seems to be where most people are heading, because I think television is dying off, movies are fading out a little bit, and a lot of people are going from there to video games. Like, I had the option to go out to a movie or to stay in and finish Life is Strange, a 2-hour episode. I was like, I much preferred to finish out Life is Strange, because I find that story much more engaging than I would find the new Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever it was. So I think it's the natural evolution. Some people, I'm not saying that you're wrong if you prefer the original God of War, if you prefer the really violent stuff. I think that this is just where the mass market is headed. I think that's where the majority of players are headed. It doesn't make you a bad person for being in that minority, I suppose it would be. But I think it's just where the market's shifting. I think that's just the natural progression of it. My mouse is having trouble right now, and I'm having trouble seeing the chat. Come on. Work with me, mouse. Arrival says, since the original God of War titles, the arcadey style RPG and narrative style RPG have kind of separated off into their own subgenres and sub-branches. I would agree. I think that it's natural. I'm sure maybe 10, 15 years from now, people will be looking at, what's a modern, I guess you could say the Ubisoft style of open world games that we have with, with Assassin's Creed and with Watch Dogs, and it seems like every game is open world and is an RPG nowadays. I'm sure in 10 years, people will be looking back and the open world whatever will be like, well, that was a weird thing to be really into. I mean, why would you want that? Maybe it won't. That's just an example of something. But I'm sure there will be things that we currently are obsessed with that in 10 years people will not find interesting or engaging at all. And I think that's probably to be expected. Zeptus says, what are your thoughts on A Way Out? I think it's going to be a Prison Break-like game. It looks like a good game to play with a friend. For me, though, at least for the moment. It looks really interesting. I said it was the only interesting thing at EA's conference, and most people seem to agree with me. But it's a weird idea. It really is when you think about it. Like, apparently we'll have online co-op, which is good. When they initially announced it, it sounded like it was only going to be couch co-op, so you have to be physically sat on the same couch, which for something like Life is Strange, I think you could do more of an episodic title. But for like a 15-hour single player style game, that's tough, because you have to literally, over the course of like a few weeks, go through this and have like every Friday night, we're going to keep going through A Way Out. Now, maybe it's going to be way short. Maybe it's going to be like a 5-hour game. That's possible too. I haven't heard about length. If you have, let me know, but I haven't heard anything about length of the game, so I don't know if it's going to be massive or it's going to be tiny. But either which way, I think it's an interesting concept. We haven't gotten a lot of gimmicky games recently The last big one I would say would be like No Man's Sky, where they said, you know, procedurally generated universe and all this. And even if 2 players were playing and they wanted to meet up, the odds of getting and meeting up with each other is like 1 in 300 billion trillion or something. And of course that was all a lie. It was all garbage. But it was at the very least a gimmick that they were pushing. Now this One Way Out seems to be, you know, it has its gimmick where it's split screen, and yet it's still single player co-op in a way. So each player has their own experience, their own story to play through, which I think is really cool, especially because you could go through it. Now, I'm not sure how it would work out in terms of sound, because they showed an instance where one person is in gameplay, the other person is in a cutscene. Will there be times when both people are in a cutscene? Will there be times when one person's in a cutscene over here and another's over here in a cutscene? So there's 2 different audio streams coming in. Will it be like you have to play it with controllers, like a PS4 controller, and plug in headphones, and it'll stream the audio to each respective controller? That's an interesting thing that I'm interested to see how they pull off. My guess would be that they've just spaced it so that you will never be in 2 separate cutscenes at the same time, which it wouldn't be that hard to do, really, if you start out the development of the game with that in mind. But like, there's all sorts of little things like that we don't even really consider when we play through a game like that, or a co-op game like that, that you have to consider all of that, all those little details, and make sure that none of it overlaps. But yeah, what are you gonna do? Derek D'Souza, hey Luke, how's your birthday? It was really fun. It was really fun. We went to Waterworld, which is like the largest water park in all of Colorado. Huge wave pool with waves that get to be like 10 feet high. It's insane. Like crazy water slides. We went there. I went there with my girlfriend. Then we also went with another couple. One, like the man in the couple being my old training partner from back in the day when I was doing MMA stuff really heavily. His name is Phipsy, was kind of his nickname because his last name is Phipps. But we were very close back then, and then we kind of had a falling out after high school, and it's been 2 years since high school, and didn't never really talk, didn't really connect, but we reconnected in the last month or 2. I've been hanging out a lot, and so we were like, hey, you want to bring your fiance to Waterworld? We'll have a great time. It's like, hell yeah. So we went. We had an amazing time. It was wonderful. I'm not usually, I mean, look how white I am. I'm not exactly an outdoorsy person normally, but holy hell, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. We had a great time. Then got really fancy Italian for dinner. It was just all around great. It was great. But yeah, it was wonderful. Liam Shaw says, I'm stuck in the southern hemisphere land and it's winter. I'm jealous because I love winter. Like, I live in Colorado, which Colorado is incredibly dry. It's either super dry and everything's dead, or it's super snowy and cold. But Colorado snow is really dry, so it's really powdery. It has no weight to it. It's like it's raining or snowing dust. It just doesn't have any weight to it. I don't know how to really explain it. If you know different types of snow, if you've lived in different areas, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But like Minnesota compared to Colorado, I've lived in both states. Minnesota is, I don't know, 300, 400, 500, 600 miles north. I don't know exactly how far, but up on the border of Canada, and that snow is so dense and wet that you can reach down and grab a handful and just hold it, and it's a snowball. Just like if you were to pack it for 10 minutes, it's a dense snowball. When we were kids living up there, we used to mound it up so it would dump snow. It would be like 3-4 feet of snow, and then the plows would come through and they would just push it onto your sidewalk and driveway. So you all of a sudden have like 6 feet of snow, and it's all super dense. So we actually would go through and we would carve through it and make tunnels all through the front yard. It was so much fun. I mean, it was really dangerous because if that collapsed, you're basically dead. You're buried under probably likely a couple 100 pounds of water weight in snow. It's crazy, crazy dense. But it was just so wonderful. Oh yeah, a little glitch with the ship. It was just wonderful. I love winter. I love winter. And I've got Scottish and Irish blood. That's what I am. I have like 40% Scottish, 40% Irish, and then maybe 20% Native American-ish, Sioux Indian. And so I'm just naturally used to very, very, very cold temperatures. So like my room, this room is normally floating in like low 60s. I'll just walk around in t-shirt. I just like it really cold. You know, in the winter you have to get used to walking around in a t-shirt. It's so nice. It's so nice. Rave Taco says, remember the snow here in May, Luke? Yeah, Rave Taco lives in Fort Collins as well, same city that I live in. And yeah, we had some weird snow. Like it's May. Last month it was May, and we like it's regular to get a pretty hefty amount of snow in May, even though that's close to the beginning of summer, I suppose. But yeah, Zep2 says in Bergen from Norway, it has been raining some rain every day of the month. Happy summer vacation, guys. I also love rain. I like depressing weather in general, I think is my issue. Nathan Easley says, do you prefer Assassin's Creed 4 or Assassin's Creed 2? Huh. I would probably say Assassin's Creed 2. I think so. Now, like, this is the thing I'm going to have to, and I'm going to ruffle some feathers, I'm sure, when I do the Black Flag critique, because I think it's, as an Assassin's Creed game, Black Flag is terrible. But it's because it doesn't try to be an Assassin's Creed game. It tries to be a fun game that also happens to be in the Assassin's Creed genre, which I think is brilliant. And so as a game, it's super fun. As an Assassin's Creed game, it's terrible. It doesn't have any of the normal things that you would expect in an Assassin's game. The AI is atrocious. There isn't like a dedicated sneak mechanic. It's just clunky as all hell. Now, they tried to fix it with Unity, with much more focus on sneaking mechanics and all of that. But it's in Black Flag, it's not there. So in that sense, I really do not enjoy Black Flag as an Assassin's Creed game. Plus, the reason I tend to like Assassin's Creed games is for the huge settings, the cities that I can explore, the fact that I can explore, you know, early 20th century London or late 19th century London, or I can go through and explore the French Revolution, France. I can do that. That's wonderful. I love that. That's one of the big reasons that I enjoy Assassin's Creed. But Black Flag said, screw that. We're going to have these smaller set pieces. You're going to be sailing around most of the time. You're going to be able to go from islands. There's going to be small city hubs. It's going to be fun, and you're going to have a good time, but it's not going to be the same as a typical Assassin's Creed game, which is what they set out to do, and they succeeded. But as an Assassin's Creed game, it really is terrible. It's just not very good. Let's see, where did I miss it? Let's see. I'm looking for comments. Liam says, I like staying inside when it rains, but yesterday I had to walk to the orthodontist and back in bucketing rain. I was so soaked and absolutely livid. I was an irate pirate. Real swashbuckling buccaneer right there. Well, yeah, Geralt says there's no need to sneak in Black Flag. You're OP. That's the other thing is, difficulty in games should always be balanced around the idea that when you screw up, it's your fault. So if I'm playing on a really hard difficulty and I peek out from a corner and I get shot in the head and one-shotted, it's because I peeked out behind the corner and I didn't have the tools, or I had the tools to do it properly, but it was my fault. I got too excited, I rushed, and then screwed up. Black Flag, the AI is so unbelievably stupid. 95% of the time when you get caught or killed, it's because something was off, or because they're so stupid most of the time that the one time they're smart and notice something, I don't know. It's just, I have a lot to figure out as to what I think about Black Flag. I have a lot of conflicting thoughts and ideas, and I need to let them settle. We'll probably talk about it when we're playing the Stick of Truth during the Encore, which, again, if you're tuning in now and you weren't here at the beginning, in about 35 minutes, we're going to be over on Twitch playing the Stick of Truth. So make sure that you pull that up in another tab, twitch.tv/LukeyPooTV. It's right up in the middle. Head over there. We're gonna have a great time. But I have so many thoughts about it. I just have to get them all out, I think, and kind of resolve it. That was the issue with the Blood and Wine critique, is I had so many of these thoughts, but I didn't take the time to resolve them and think about if they really made sense to be frustrated. Like, not having a dedicated villain, I thought that was frustrating for me because I wanted one person to go after, but that in the narrative sense doesn't make a lot of sense. Narrative sense does make sense. There you go. I'm a genius. I'm a lyrical. I forgot how that goes. What was that Eminem rap? I'm the cynical, sinister minister. Shady. That's what it was. Let's see. Game Review says, I think the stealth is already really good in Unity except for the AI. Unity was an interesting case just because, like, there's an idea of, like, I've seen it on, I don't know who originally came up with it. I honestly don't. So I'm sorry if I'm ripping off somebody's idea. But there was an idea, like Schrodinger's cat was a big thing, philosophically speaking. The idea that if a cat is put, like, in a box and there's perhaps like a 50-50 chance that the cat just dies. Maybe like you might take the box and drop it off a roof, for instance. There's 50% chance that the cat is alive or a 50% chance that the cat is dead. But you don't know until you've opened the box. So the idea is that at the same time, because you can't be sure the cat is both alive and dead, they're both true because they can't be resolved until you've opened the box. Once you open the box, it is resolved. But until then, there's this dual kind of universe middle ground. Like, look at this AI. Look how stupid this is. He's walking towards me, and he's just saw me choke this chick out, and he's fine. He's fine. Like, that's an issue. So when I'm reviewing Black Flag, I don't know if I should call that out, because I'm thinking this is a game from 2013. Was that just the best they could do at the time, or was the AI just, is it just bad? Was it also bad at the time? And I don't think I should comment on it based on the time it was made. I think it makes sense to comment on it as it stands today as a game. If the AI ruins the game, then I should call it out. That's kind of where I'm at currently, but I don't know. There's just so much. There's so much stuff. I don't know. What I'm even saying anymore. But let's see. Yeah, Nathan Easley. I take off my headphones for a minute and we're talking about quantum physics. Sorry. Oh, that's where I was going. With the idea of Schrodinger's cat, where you have this dual, they're both true because you can't, kind of like the tree. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, did it really fall? Same basic idea with, like, Unity, where you're asking, is this like bad AI, or is it just another glitch because the game is so glitchy. Like, is it just broken or is it legitimate? I've heard people, I saw it on Reddit, people were using a lot for like Bethesda games. Like I think they called it like Bethesda's cat, I think is what they were calling it, and talking about it, which was funny because it's like, is this just a poorly designed gameplay mechanic, or is it a bug, something that's not working? Both could be true. We don't know, so we'll just assume they're both kind of true, which I think is just wonderful. Wonderful. It's really well done. Again, I feel sorry. I don't know who initially came up with it. But yeah, I don't know. What is Schrodinger's cat? Let's see. Schrodinger's cat. I have a story to tell you about Schrodinger's cat. One time, my brother, bless his heart, my brother was going through, he was part of an organization, a group called Civil Air Patrol, a CAP, and it's a little thing that you can do once you turn 12 through 18 years old. You can join CAP and you wear like BDUs, you wear a uniform like the Air Force, and it's kind of like pre-training for the Air Force is how you can think of it. If you go through CAP and you get to certain levels, you can join the Air Force when you turn 18 and start as like a staff sergeant. That's how serious it is. It's actually like basically a subset of the military. My brother Joe he was very, very successful in it. And so he would go and he'd volunteer for all of these events that people needed help with. If they had like some big community thing, if they had a yard sale where they needed tables moved, they just needed some muscle, they'd call in the CAP guys and they'd go and they'd help carry tables to where they needed to be and do stuff like that. So one day he got a call and they were going to go help with a funeral because this lady had died. She had like 5 kids, really sad, cancer. She passed away, and they were holding a funeral at this big church, and they were going to go outside the church afterwards and have like a big potluck in her honor, basically in her memory. And so he's like, okay. And so he just goes out the house, he heads over there, and so all these people are arriving for this funeral. And Joe didn't realize that he was wearing a shirt that said, you know, on the front side, it says Schrodinger's cat is dead. And on the back, it says Schrodinger's cat is not dead. So it's like this half true, half not thing where you aren't sure if, like, well, is your mom really dead? She might not be. Until you see her in the casket, she could be. It was really, really awkward. So he actually took his shirt off and turned it inside out and wore it, so it's just a black shirt in the sun. But I felt really bad for him because it's like, of all the people to wear that shirt to a funeral, it would be Joe. But yeah, Game Review says play BioShock Infinite and you'll understand all of it. Yeah. This is Schrodinger's cat. It's a thought experiment, sometimes described as a paradox, devised by Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger in 1935. It illustrates what he saw as the problem of the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics applied to everyday objects. Scenario presents a cat that may be both simultaneously both alive and dead, a state known as quantum superposition, as a result of being linked to a random subatomic event that may or may not occur. The thought experiment is also often featured in theoretical discussions of the interpretations of quantum mechanics. Schrödinger's coined the term Verschränkung, or entanglement, in the course of developing the thought experiment. So yeah, super fun. Doesn't that just look like a hoot? That looks like so much fun. But yeah, I don't know how talking about Assassin's Creed Unity and we end up with a discussion of Schrodinger's cat. But yeah, that's what you get with Talk Gaming. You get some really weird stuff, really weird discussions. But as I said, we're going to be over on Twitch right after this. I'm going to, take off probably 20 minutes, get a drink and all that. Hey, what's up, Mohammed? we're gonna, you know, rest. I'm gonna rest my voice, maybe get some tea. Nikki might be here for that live stream when we go through some Stick of Truth, so make sure that you head over to Twitch right after for the post show. And if you're watching this recorded afterwards, which is mathematically more likely, then make sure that you head over there. It might be cataloged, I don't know, I don't understand Twitch all that well, but definitely check it out. It's worth a shot. But yeah, sorry that this episode was much more light and just off the cuff, but I think we had a good time. Hopefully next week we have a little more to talk about. Make sure you join our Discord. As always, we would love to have you. There it is. The Discord right there. Put that link in. You'll be taken there. You'll get a greeting. We just would love to have you there. We have lots of fun, lots of talks, lots of good times. And yeah, that's all. That's all I got. Arrival says Schrodinger's Khajiit, which is great. That's great. Schrodinger's Khajiit. He'd love that. That's wonderful. That's great. That's great. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. That was so wonderful. Neat says, can you try to download Hitman for the last time? I'm sorry if I'm asking you to play it too much. No, that's fine. I'll try it again during this off time once I shut the stream down. We'll give it a little while. I'll give it another shot. Don't worry. But thank you for watching, one and all. Head over to Twitch and the Discord if you haven't already. We'll be up and running in probably about 25 minutes on the nose. But we'll see you right over there in just a minute. Thank you for watching. If you're watching this recorded, love you all. Bye-bye.